أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب زدني علما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Today we are going to start with verse number 163 of Surah Al-Araaf, which is the 7th surah of the Quran. It's also been translated as the top of the wall. وَاسْأَلْهُمْ عَنِ الْقَرْيَةِ الَّتِي كَانَتْ حَاضِرَةَ الْبَحْرِ إِذْ يَعْدُونَ فِي السَّبْتِ إِذْ تَأْتِيهِمْ حِيتَانُهُمْ يَوْمَ سَبْتِهِمْ شُرَّعًا وَيَوْمَ لَا يَسْبِتُونَ لَا تَأْتِيهِمْ كَذَلِكَ نَبْلُوهُمْ بِمَا كَانُوا يَفْسُقُونَ. Ask them about the township situated near the sea. They broke the Sabbath when their fish used to come to them on that day, swimming on the surface of the water, but not on other days. This is how we tried them for their trespasses. Now, even though there is no injunction about the Sabbath in the Quran for the believers of Prophet Muhammad, but the Quran recognizes the Sabbath as a requirement established in the Torah for the Bani Israels. And here a case is being mentioned about a township near the sea. According to Ibn Abbas, this was called Ayla. The name of the town was Ayla or Aylat. And it was situated between Midian and the Sinai. And according to some, it is now known as the Uqba. Others give other names as the Tiberias or Midian and so on and so forth. So the people of this place were tested and tried by, of course, they all were supposed to observe the Sabbath, but these people, since they were not allowed to do even fishing or hunting on Saturday, that they were tested by the fact that the fish used to swim in great numbers on the surface of the water on Saturday, and on other days they would not be so plentiful. So the people of that place found a devious way of getting around it, circumventing this order by closing the canals, digging canals and then closing them before Saturday. So on Saturday, the fish would come and collect in those canals, and then they would take them out on the next day, and then they would say, we did not fish on Saturday. So they were using some devious means. So this is what, in a way, they failed in their trial or their test. This fact is also mentioned in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse number 65. Now it has been said that the people of that town were divided into three groups. One group was of those who did not want to fish. One group was those who wanted to fish and they did fish. The other group was those who tried to stop them. They admonished them against it. And then the third group was of those who neither fished nor did they try to stop the others, nor did they admonish the others. So of these three groups, it is said that the third group, which neither fished nor admonished others, they were also saved in the end because they did not fish themselves. But the best group of those who neither fished and they also admonished people against it. The trespassers, of course, were punished and the admonishers were saved because it is supposed to be the moral duty to stop people from breaching the law of God, no matter which prophet one is following, but one is supposed to stop people from breaching the law of God brought by that prophet. وَإِذْ قَالَتْ أُمَّةٌ مِّنْهُمْ لِمَا تَعِظُونَ قَوْمًا اللَّهُ مُهْلِكُهُمْ أَوْ مُعَذِّبُهُمْ عَذَابًا شَدِيدًا قَالُوا مَعْذِرَةً إِلَىٰ رَبِّكُمْ وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَّقُونَ. And recall when a group from among them said to the preachers, why do you admonish a nation which God is going to destroy or punish with severe punishment? So the group that was, sort of lethargic, they didn't do any of these things, they said to the preachers who were trying to stop the people, they said, why do you admonish a nation which is going to be destroyed or punished with severe punishment? And they replied, to clear ourselves of blame before your Lord, and also so that they might become God-fearing. They felt that it was their moral duty, and also they wanted to have a clean record in front of God. Also, so that they will be able to answer God on the day of judgment, that they did try to stop people from doing the wrong thing. They said it was their moral duty. فَلَمَّا نَسُوا مَا ذُكِّرُوا بِهِ أَنْجَيْنَا الَّذِينَ يَنْهَوْنَ عَنِ السُّوءِ وَأَخَذْنَا الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا بِعَذَابٍ بَئِيسٍ بِمَا كَانُوا يَفْسُقُونَ. When they ignored what they had been admonished with, we saved those who used to forbid evil, and we caught those who trespassed with grievous punishment because they used to transgress. So those who were forbidding the evil act, they were saved, and those who defied the law, they were of course punished. We caught those who trespassed with grievous punishment. Now, it is said that those who ignored the Sabbath was the nation of the Bani Israelis, and some say that those who defied the laws were the Jews of the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. فَلَمَّا أَطَوْا عَمَّا نَهُوا عَنْهُ قُلْنَا لَهُمْ كُونُوا قِرْدَةً خَاسِئِينَ. When they rebelled against what they had been forbidden, we said to them, turn into apes, contemptible. Now there is a great deal of discussion in this. We know that we have read earlier in Surah Al-Baqarah, verses 65 and 66, about people who defied the Sabbath and then they were turned into apes. So here the word Kunu Qirdatan has been taken up by the scholars, and there's a lot of discussion about this, because the word kun, be, is the word through which God brings about any creation or any change that He wants to. So this is what some scholars say, that when God uses this word in this context, it means that they were actually changed into apes. Some other scholars think that they were not changed physically, but their natures became somewhat like the apes. According to Karam Shah, their attributes became like the apes. And according to some other commentators, God was abandoning them to their base instincts, which will lead to their humiliation and being shunned from their community. When they start acting on their base instincts, they will of course appear like some animals. And this is found in the Bible as well, in the book of Exodus, chapter 31, verse 14, that the one who works on Sabbath shall be cut off from his people. That means people will not want to socialize with the person who works on the Sabbath. وَإِسْتَأْذَنَ رَبُّكَ لَيَبْعَثَنَّ عَلَيْهِمْ إِلَى يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ مَنْ يَسُومُهُمْ سُوءَ الْعَذَابِ إِنَّ رَبَّكَ لَسَرِيعُ الْعِقَابِ وَإِنَّهُ لَغَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. And remember, your Lord announced that He will keep sending on them such tyrants as will persecute them severely till the last day. Indeed, your Lord is quick in reckoning, and He is the much forgiving, the ever merciful. That means that God will grant other people authority over them. They will have to live under some other nations, and that will be a way of being persecuted by other people. And according to some commentators, before Islam, the Zoroastrians and the Persians were ruling over them, over the Bani Israelis, as also the Greeks, Romans, and the Christians from time to time in history. This is stated by Ibn Kasir. And they had gained authority over the Jewish people. And send against them means, according to some other commentators, the Arabs or the Muslims will have political authority over early Islamic conquests. And it is also said that in 598 BC, the Babylonians and then later the Nebuchadnezzar or Bakhnassar attacked Jerusalem and destroyed the Bani Israelis in every way. This is also stated in Surah Bani Israel, which is the 17th Surah of the Quran, verse number 58. And if we look at modern history, we find that Hitler in Germany, he actually killed 6 million Jews. And because Hitler also was a racist, and he thought that this race had no right to be above the Germans, so he tried to destroy them. And remember, your Lord announced that He will keep sending on them tyrants We just read this, as we persecute them severely till the last day. Indeed, your Lord is quick in reckoning, and He is the much forgiving, the ever merciful. Now, first, all the severest, persecution and punishments are mentioned, and then all of a sudden we read, your Lord is quick in reckoning, and He is the much forgiving, the ever merciful. So, according to some commentators, this means that they will be receiving punishment in this world, and that will be, all. But other commentators think that there will be punishment in this world, and this will be inherited by their later generations. And even in the Old Testament, this is mentioned. The Quranic perspective says that there will be punishment in this world, and there will be punishment in the hereafter, after the Day of Judgment. وَقَطَّعْنَاهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ أُمَمًا مِنْهُمُ الصَّالِحُونَ وَمِنْهُمْ دُونَ ذَلِكَ وَبَلَوْنَاهُمْ بِالْحَسَنَاتِ وَالسَّيِّئَاتِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. We divided them into many groups. Some of them are righteous and others are different. We tried them with blessings and with sufferings so that they would return, meaning they would return to God. They were divided into many groups. That means they sort of, differed. These groups, they were divided into communities, and they differed among themselves throughout the world. And some of these groups were righteous. Why? How were they righteous? Because they were following the Jewish law and ritual from the Torah. And others were different, means that they were not righteous and they were not following the law of God given in the Torah. We tried them with blessings and with sufferings. So this is the way of God, that He tests people by giving them blessings as well as by persecuting, or by giving them sufferings, by giving them something or taking away something. So even with blessings and joy, both the things can be a kind of test for them, for anybody. For example, the Bani Israelis always had provision and ease and the ability to dominate in trade and in leadership and also in wisdom. That is why other people were always afraid of them. And some of them, of course, not some, but most of them thought that they were the chosen people of God because so many prophets had been sent to them, and that became the reason for their success and having so much of wisdom, that they thought they were the chosen people and they will not be punished. And some of them said that even if we are punished, whatever wrong we commit at night will be forgiven in the morning. And whatever we commit in the morning will be forgiven at night time, because we are the chosen people. And some said that our punishment will be only for as many days as we had worshipped the calf. The days for which we did shirk, only those many days we will be punished, and then we will be forgiven. فَخَلَفَ مِنْ بَعْدِهِمْ خَلْفٌ وَرِثُوا الْكِتَابَ يَأْخُذُونَ أَرَضَ هَذَا الْأَدْنَى وَيَقُولُونَ سَيُغْفَرُ لَنَا وَإِنْ يَأْتِهِمْ أَرَضٌ مِثْلُهُ يَأْخُذُوهُ أَلَمْ يُؤْخَذْ عَلَيْهِمْ مِيثَاقُ الْكِتَابِ أَنْ لَا يَقُولُوا عَلَى اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْحَقَّ وَدَرَسُوا مَا فِيهِ وَالدَّارُ الْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لِلَّذِينَ يَتَّقُونَ أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. They were succeeded by successors who inherited the book. They choose the short-lasting benefits of this world and say, we are sure to be forgiven. If they received more benefits of the same kind, they would accept them. Were they not made to promise on oath that they would say about God nothing but the truth? And they had read what was in the book. The dwelling of the hereafter is better for those who are righteous. Do you not understand? So they were, when the next generation came, they were succeeded by successors who inherited the book, because at that time no new prophet came after Musa, but they were given the book. So they choose the short-lasting benefits of this world. So what are the short-lasting benefits of this world? For example, if there's a scholar of the Torah and people with money came to him and said, please change this injunction from the book. Erase this or change it. And since he would offer some money, a good amount of money, they would take that money and make changes in their books, make changes in the word of God, which was a great sin. So they choose the short-lasting benefits of this world. Here it says, Yakhuzuna arada hazal adna. Adna is something which is very of low value. So, most people think that if they make a lot of money in this world and that's, the height of their success, but they don't realize that the real success comes in the being successful in the next world. But they chose the short-lasting benefits of this world. The word adna is from dunya, and dunya means this world, and it also, the literal meaning is something which is very of low value and short-lasting and unimportant and close by. So all these meanings come under adna. So they choose the short-lasting benefits of this world and say we are sure to be forgiven. So even if they have committed a sin or a crime, they say that the punishment will not last long. So they were overconfident about God's mercy towards them. So this is like being a spoiled child, who can just keep on doing whatever he wants to do. And then he says that, doesn't matter, my mother will forgive me. She doesn't say anything to me. So this is their attitude. If they receive more benefits of the same kind, they would accept them. So they were not repentant and they just wanted worldly benefits. Were they not made to promise on oath that they would say about God nothing but the truth? So which is the oath that being mentioned here? It is the covenant that when you accept a prophet as your leader, you accept his faith and his teachings and his book. This is like an oath or a covenant. And then you're not supposed to invent false things about God, because that would be like slander or iftara, that is mentioned again and again in the Quran, saying things about God which he did not say. So the dwelling of the hereafter is better for those who are righteous. This is what most people in this world do not understand, because they do not have complete faith in the hereafter. They are not sure, they say, who has seen the hereafter? We don't know if it's true or not. So, since we can see this world, just let us enjoy this world as much as we can. So, here we are being told that the dwelling of the hereafter is better for those who are righteous, for those who want to do everything right that they have been taught. And also, if they have committed some wrong, then if they repent, they ask for forgiveness, then of course God is always ready to forgive people who ask for forgiveness. He is the much forgiving. He is the Ghaffar and the Ghafoor. He always forgives those who sincerely ask for forgiveness. So those who continue to adhere to the teachings and the commands and the prohibitions of the book will be rewarded, no matter which book it is, as long as it is the revealed book given to a prophet by God, and if people are following it in their time, then they will be rewarded. وَالَّذِينَ يُمَسِّكُونَ بِالْكِتَابِ وَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ إِنَّا لَا نَضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُصْلِحِينَ. As for those who hold on to the book and establish prayer should know that God does not allow to go waste the reward of those who reform. So, as we have read in the last juz or para of the Quran, shorter verses and surahs, that even if you have done the smallest grain that you can imagine, if you have done that much of good, that will also be in your record. So God does not waste. Here it has been said, God does not allow to go waste the reward of those who reform. So all those people who are doing good things, He will put in their record even the smallest good that they have done. Now about who will be rewarded, we have read in Surah Al-Baqarah 262 and also later that even the Jews, the Sabians and the Christians and those who believe that means the Muslims will be rewarded. That means God has not chosen any group for the reward. He has chosen those who repent and who believe. And the sins of the forefathers is not the responsibility of the children. But if they repent, then they are rewarded. وَإِذْ نَتَقْنَا الْجَبَلَ فَوْقَهُمْ كَأَنَّهُ ظُلَّةٌ وَظَنُّوا أَنَّهُ واقع بهم خُذُوا مَا آتَيْنَاكُمْ بِقُوَّةٍ وَاذْكُرُوا مَا فِيهِ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Remember, we shook the mountain over them as if it were a canopy. This is again referring to the incident when God had asked Musa to come with their 70 best people, especially the knowledgeable people or the scholars, the leaders, so that they would ask for forgiveness of God for the sin of shirk that they had committed by worshipping the calf. And when they followed Hazrat Musa and then Musa was communing with God, he was speaking to him, they were lying in prostration in a state of sajda. And when the cloud went away and Musa got up, they said, we want to see who you were talking with. If you were talking with God, we also want to see him. Now even Musa had not been able to see God, if we remember. And now these people are making such a bold demand. So God was very angry at this demand, and then it is said, it's not easy to imagine, but somehow it is said that the Mount Tur was raised above their heads. And the word here, natakna, is supposed to mean that it was uprooted, that like the whole mountain was uprooted and made to stand up above their heads, suspended in fact. And this thing about the Mount Tur being held above their heads or being suspended above their heads, we have read this several times. I think it should be clear by now. Now the topic is changing in verse number 172. This is a very important topic, and it would do well to remember the number of the verse from Surah Al-Araaf, verse number 172. وَإِذْ أَخَذَ رَبُّكَ مِنْ بَنِي آدَمَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ وَأَشْهَدَهُمْ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ أَلَسْتُ بِرَبِّكُمْ قَالُوا بَلَىٰ شَهِدْنَا أَن تَقُولُوا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ إِنَّا كُنَّا عَنْ هَٰذَا غَافِلِينَ. Recall when your Lord drew out from the bodies of the children of Adam the spirits of their children and made them witnesses over themselves, asking, am I not your Lord? They replied, indeed, Bala, that means indeed, we testify. This happened so that you would not say on the day of resurrection, we were not aware of this. So, somehow commentators have, different opinions about this, but the most commonly held opinion, and which I also accept, is that this was a pre-temporal covenant. That means before time, before the establishment of time. And misaq here is the word used. It's not used in this verse, but the word misaq is used for this story that we get from here. It's a pact made with all of humanity prior to their existence. That is why it's called a pre-temporal covenant. Before they existed in this world, their souls were drawn out from the bodies of the children of Adam, and they were all collected together. And this was, God asked them, am I not your Lord? And they all answered, indeed. That means this knowledge has been put into the mind and soul of each and every human being that there is only one God, one Lord. And also there was a pre-temporal covenant between God and all the prophets. We read, for example, in Surah Al-Imran, verse number 81 also, God says that I made a pact with all the prophets that when such and such a prophet comes, you should all believe in him and help him. So there are many covenants in the Quran, but this one is the most direct, and it is between God and all of humanity, and is the basis of all covenants that were contracted. This is the basis of all the covenants that were later contracted. Now, some people say that the first covenant is the original nature of human beings, which is the primordial nature, which is since the beginning of time, when the human being is born, it is in his nature to believe in the one God or to worship God. So this is part of his nature, or fitrat as we might say. So this is in the essence of all human beings, that they recognize God's oneness. But they have forgotten, if you ask anyone today, do you remember that God took this oath from you? And they'll say, what oath? I don't remember any oath. But it is there in the subconscious mind, and it is preserved also in their souls. And this has established the moral responsibility for them to believe in it themselves and also to carry this message to other people. So when the souls are brought to life in the physical bodies, then they encounter the concept of the oneness of God and they are reminded of that covenant. And some commentators also say that if a child dies early, before reaching the age of moral responsibility, that is, before being an adult, then he dies in a state of moral purity. And therefore the first covenant of his fitrah, the original fitrah, is also there. So that means he will be innocent and he will not be held accountable. But those who reject the covenant which was being later brought by the prophets, then the first covenant of their fitrah will not be of any use to them. Now this here, am I not your Lord, is said to be a declarative statement. That means something is being declared in this statement, but is in the form of a question. And according to some commentators, Rumi and other writers, they refer to this as the day of Alast, because God has said, Alastu bi Rabbikum, am I not your Lord? So that they would not deny this knowledge on the day of resurrection, of God's Lordship. And this covenant or oath also creates the potential in the human being for the acceptance of the revelation. So if they're at the right time, in the right way, this is presented to them, the fact of there being one God and His having sent only one religion, then they, pure souls, recognize this at once. So that indeed we testify. This happened so that you would not say on the day of resurrection that we were not aware of this. So now there is no excuse has been left for human beings to deny this fact on the day of judgment, because God has made this announcement even before they were born. Some writers do not believe that this actually happened. They think that, just the fact that the prophets keep coming and saying, bringing messages, that is what is supposed to be the covenant which human beings have made with God. أَوْ تَقُولُوا إِنَّمَا أَشْرَكَ آبَاؤُنَا مِنْ قَبْلُ وَكُنَّا ذُرِّيَّةً مِنْ بَعْدِهِمْ أَفَتُهْلِكُنَا بِمَا فَعَلَ الْمُبْطِلُونَ. Or say, our forefathers associated partners with God before us, and we were their children after them. Are you going to destroy us for what was done by those who followed falsehood? That means it's not our fault if our forefathers were worshipping idols, or if they were polytheists. It's not our fault. We are just following them. So what is wrong with that, But everyone is responsible for his own actions. وَكَذَلِكَ نُفَصِّلُ الْآيَاتِ وَلَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْجِعُونَ. This is how we expound our signs so that they would return, that is, return to the worship of the one God. So, نُفَصِّلُ الْآيَاتِ is used a lot of times in the Quran to make it clear that God in the Quran has explained things in various ways. The same thing has been explained again and again in so many different ways, so that at least in one of the ways, people might start to believe. وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ الَّذِي آتَيْنَاهُمْ آيَاتِنَا فَانْسَلَخَ مِنْهَا فَأَتْبَعَهُ الشَّيْطَانُ فَكَانَ مِنَ الْغَاوِينَ. Read to them the account of the one to whom we gave the knowledge of our revelations. But he avoided them, so Shaitan followed him and he became of the misguided. Now, different writers, different commentators have named different people, different men, about whom this verse number 175 is speaking about. Some say that this was Balaam Baura, and he was a very spiritually elevated person, and in the time of Hazrat Musa alayhi salam. And he turned against Musa alayhi salam because he thought, since he was so knowledgeable and he was also a very spiritual person, he thought that he would be the next prophet. Since he was not appointed the next prophet, he turned against Hazrat Musa, and here it is said that he avoided all the, that means he did not believe in the revelations, and so that Shaitan followed him and he became misguided by rejecting the signs of God. Now, this is also mentioned in the Bible in the book of Numbers, chapter 22 and verse number 24. But here, the Bible says that he refused to curse Hazrat Musa alayhi salam. There was this king who was going to have a fight with the people of followers of Musa alayhi salam, and he asked Balaam Baura to curse Musa alayhi salam and his people. But he made him give sacrifices on 4 hilltops, but every time he avoided to curse Musa alayhi salam and the Israelites. Now, in the Quranic commentators say that the Arab Umayyah bin Abi al-Salt, he was the scholar of all the books that were available at the time, the revealed books, and the scholar of the Jewish and Christian scriptures. And he also hoped that he would be made the next prophet. And he also had believed in the one God, and he believed in the hereafter. But when Hazrat Muhammad was appointed the prophet, he refused to believe in him or in the Quran. This is also stated by Ibn Kasir, Al-Razi and Tabari, all the classical commentators. So we come across these people. Shaitan himself had so much knowledge and spirituality that he had been asked to stay with the angels. But in fact, he had the knowledge, but he didn't have the right. He was not rightly guided in his mind and heart. And therefore, and he was also in a way selfish, because he wanted to be appointed the next prophet. He was not going to say yes to to obey whatever God had given him. So when God asked him to do sajda to Adam, he refused, and that is how he became condemned forever. So these people also were following the shaitan or Satan, and they became misguided by rejecting the signs of God. وَلَوْ شِئْنَا لَرَفَعْنَاهُ بِهَا وَلَكِنَّهُ أَخْلَدَ إِلَى الْأَرْضِ وَاتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ فَمَثَلُهُ كَمَثَلِ الْكَلْبِ إِنْ تَحْمِلْ عَلَيْهِ يَلْهَثْ أَوْ تَتْرُكْهُ يَلْهَثْ ذَلِكَ مَثَلُ الْقَوْمِ الَّذِينَ كَذَّبُوا بِآيَاتِنَا فَاقْصُصِ الْقَصَصَ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. If we had pleased, we could have raised a station by them, but he was inclined towards the lowly and started following his vain desires. His similitude is that of a dog. You attack him, he pants, and if you leave him alone, he still pants. Such are the people who deny our signs. Relate to them this account. It is possible they might ponder or think about it. Now, about these people, or about Balaam Baura, here the Quran says, if we had pleased, we could have raised a station by them, that is, by the signs of God, if he had believed in them. But he was inclined towards the lowly. Again, the word ard is used here, akhlada ilal arde vattaba hawahu. And that means he was inclined towards the lowly and he started following his desires. And his desire was, of course, the material and the worldly attractions, the material attractions of this world. And God allowed him to make his own choice. If he was inclined towards the lowly, then God did not force him to come the other way. And he's been compared here to a dog. And a dog's, how he pants, how he breathes. If you attack him, he'll breathe hard, and if you leave him alone, he'll still keep on doing that. And that means there is no way in which he could have changed his attitude. So such are the people who deny our signs. So those people who deny the signs of God are the most lowly people in the world. And relate to them this account. So Prophet Muhammad ﷺ is being asked to relate or to narrate all these cases of people so that they might learn a lesson from this. Now here Al-Razi quotes a hadith in which he says that whoever increases in knowledge but not in guidance increases in nothing but distance from God. This is exactly what the shaitan had done and what these other people that we have just discussed, they had done, that they had a great deal of knowledge but they did not have enough guidance or spiritual guidance. and they'd increased in nothing but distance from God. I'd like to refer back to verse number 172, which is about the covenant made between the souls of the human beings and God. There's a hadith which has been explained, and the Prophet said that when God created Adam, He made all the souls of the human beings that were to be born from Adam to the end of time to appear. And He asked them, "Am I not your Lord?" Indeed, came the spontaneous reply. Many scholars think that this covenant actually took place and is not a parable as stated by some other scholars. The question that arises, since no one remembers making this covenant, how is one accountable? The answer is that it is intact in the subconscious, and whenever right guidance, the right opportunity, and the concept of the oneness of God are presented in the right manner, a person at once accepts the concept of the existence of the one God and bows to Him in total submission. This is stated by Qurtubi and by Karam Shah. People everywhere have felt the need to worship and bow to some higher power. Even if you go to the remotest jungle, you will find that people are indulging in some kind of a worship ritual. Now we are on verse number 177. Sa'a masalan lil qawmil lazina kazzabu bi ayatina wa anfusahum kanu yazlimun. A terrible example was set by those who denied our revelations, and they only harmed themselves. So harm themselves, again, this is the policy or the style of the Quran, that when somebody is being cruel or somebody is trying to harm somebody else or putting up a resistance against somebody, then against somebody who is right, then what they are doing is actually they are harming themselves. So a terrible example was set by those who denied our revelations. They only harmed themselves. They thought they were doing a good thing by denying the revelations, but they were just harming themselves. That means that action was rebounding on them. They were harming nobody but themselves. مَن يَهْدِ اللَّهُ فَهُوَ الْمُهْتَدِي وَمَن يُضْلِلْ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْخَاسِرُونَ. The one guided by God is the one truly guided. Those who are misguided are the ones who are truly lost. So now some commentators get confused by this, that the one guided by God is the one truly guided. That means some people are guided by God. And these commentators think that the other people who are misguided were misguided by God. That is not true. God gives them a time, gives them opportunities, but if they keep rejecting those opportunities and if they cross their time limit, then they are caught. And He leads astray only those who are entrenched in their disbelief. And this is a consequence of their own actions. وَلَقَدْ زَرَعْنَا لِجَهَنَّمَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ أَعْيُنٌ لَا يَبْصِرُونَ بِهَا وَلَهُمْ آذَانٌ لَا يَسْمَعُونَ بِهَا أُولَٰئِكَ كَالْأَنْعَامِ بَلْ هُمْ أَضَلُّ أُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْغَافِلُونَ. Indeed, we created for hell many of the jinns and humans. They have hearts, but they do not perceive with them. They have eyes, but they do not see with them. And they have ears, but they do not hear with them. They are like cattle, or even more lost, for they are unaware. So again, this also has come, has been discussed a great deal by commentators, and they say, we created for hell many of the jinns and humans. That means it was God's purpose, or this is what He had done. That's what He wanted to do, to create some people for heaven and create some people for hell. But here it is said they have hearts, but they do not perceive with them. Heart is the seat of emotions, even though if you talk to a doctor or a scientist, they will say that the heart is just to pump the blood in the body. But, from time immemorial, in all the writings and the poetry and everything, you read about the heart as being the seat of all the emotions and sentiments. So they have hearts, but they do not perceive with them. They have eyes, but they do not, people were looking at the real prophet, the highest, most elevated Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and their eyes could not make out that this is indeed a prophet standing in front of us. And they have ears, but they do not hear with them. They could hear the Prophet. They heard him reciting the prayers. They heard him reciting the Quran, but it didn't have any influence on them. That means physically they were okay. They could hear the sounds, but it did not affect them. Their spiritual ears were missing. Their spiritual eyes were missing. And their spiritual hearts were missing. They are like cattle, or even more lost, or they are unaware. So here these people have been compared to cattle. That cattle, of course, there's nothing wrong with the cattle. They do what they are supposed to do, but they do not have much of an intellect. So such people are no better than these beasts. They just have their base desires to have, just to eat and do all the basic things that they're supposed to do, and then they can't see beyond their eyes. Some of the creation, of course, has not been created for this choice. Like God has given the choice only to human beings and to the jinn. And this is why it has been said that so many jinns and human beings have been created for hell, because they have the choice and they don't make the right choice. وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوهُ بِهَا وَذَرُوا الَّذِينَ يُلْحِدُونَ فِي أَسْمَائِهِ سَيُجْزَوْنَ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. The most beautiful names belong to God. So call out to Him with them and ignore those who are irreverent about His names. They will be punished for what they used to do. The most beautiful names are the Al-Asma' al-Husna. God has Himself called His names, which are His attributes, His sifat. They call them Asma' al-Husna, that is the most beautiful names. So here it is said, the most beautiful names belong to God, so call out to Him with them. That means to do zikr, to remember Him with those beautiful names. And this is up to you, which name you want to appeal to. If you want, for example, Imam Ghazali has written a whole book on just this one topic of the beautiful names of God. Of course, it's a very philosophical book and not everyone can read the whole book, but there are some very important points in it. And he says that if you want to take your share from one of the attributes or qualities of God, as much a share as it is possible for a human being to gain, he can call out by that name. For example, if he calls out Ya Rahman or Ya Rahimu, then he will find that soon with time, God will start becoming merciful to him. If he's saying, Oh merciful, then God will start becoming merciful to him. And also if he practices this virtue, if that person starts being merciful to other human beings, then God will also start being merciful to him. And his life will gradually start changing and so on. And this is, of course, all the Muslims have this tradition of reciting the names of God. They do it sometimes for the problems that they have to solve those problems, and sometimes if they want to achieve some spiritual gain. And ignore those who are irreverent about His names. So how is one being irreverent? Now, first of all, I'd also like to mention that Allah is also, of course, the name of God, but this is His proper noun, His name. And Al means the in English, and Ilah is the deity. So Allah means the deity. That means the one and only deity. The one and only deity who is worthy of being worshipped. And then besides that, there are supposed to be 99 attributes of God. But there are many other names. According to Imam Ghazali, every human being can add another name to this list of 99 from his own experience with God. If he thinks that God is the most merciful even to a sinner like me, or something like that, whatever experience he's had, then that name can also be added. In fact, there are some names which are in the Quran but which are not in that list. Example, Fatir. Al-Fatir is the maker, the creator. But this name somehow is not to be found in the list. And this list we find in the hadith which has been related by Hazrat Abu Huraira. Call out to him is, of course, to perform the zikr, to keep reciting it as much as one can. And the Sufis also, who are, inclined towards the spiritual, They base their zikr on this verse because here God has said to call out to God. So they keep calling out to God with these names. And all these beautiful names have, some goodness or virtue or positive qualities. And they are also beautiful in the sound to the ear and the heart. Asma'ul Husna also means the most perfect attributes because they are attributes of perfection. And this point about there being beautiful names of God is mentioned about 4 times in the Quran. We find it in Surah Al-Bani Israel, verse number 110, in Surah Taha, verse number 8, and Al-Hashr, which is the 59th surah, and verse number 24. So, in 4 times in the Quran, the term Asma'ul Husna has been mentioned. وَمِمَّنْ خَلَقْنَا أُمَّةٌ يَهْدُونَ بِالْحَقِّ وَبِهِ يَعْدِلُونَ. Of those we have created, there is a nation that guides with the truth and with it makes its judgments. Now, some scholars think that this is a reference to the scholars and others who, invited to their prophet of their time in Prophet Musa's time. This we find also mentioned in verse number 159 of the same surah that we are reading. It says, there is a group in the nation of Musa which guides with the truth and also judges with it. That means, which guides with the truth, that is, guides with the Torah. So all the books are treated with great reverence in the Quran. So here it says, of those we have created, there is a nation that guides with the truth and with it makes its judgments. According to some people, this refers to the religious scholars and those who are inviting others to Islam. So these are the people that God has mentioned here. And of course, it can't be restricted to any one time, but it also refers to all the righteous people of all the times to come. I think we have reached the limit of our time as well as our lesson. And next time, I would like to go into greater detail into the Asma'ul Husna. And I had written an article once on the beautiful names of God, and it was published in the Dawn newspaper. You could find it in the archives of Dawn in their website. And a longer version is there in my book. And from these we can, discuss the names of God in a little more detail. Because this is one of my favorite topics, the names of God. So we have finished up to verse number 181. And inshallah, we will carry on from 182 next time. Let's say a little prayer. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وأدخلنا الجنة مع الأبرار يا عزيز يا غفار يا رب العالمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين آمين ثم آمين. Thank you everyone for joining us, and Jazakallah khair to you. Inshallah, we'll see you all next time. Allah Hafiz.